Some love stories begin with a smile? This one began with silence. And ended with a letter that never reached my hands, not until after he was gone. I didn't know who he truly was when I fell for him. I didn't know he was dying. And I didn't know that a Korean billionaire with the world at his feet had only one wish in his final days. To be loved as a man, not a name. This is our story. And if you've ever loved someone you couldn't keep, you'll feel every word. Keep reading, because the letter changed everything. Kang Jae-won had the world under his feet, yet not a soul to share his coffee with. Each morning in Seoul's elite district, his penthouse greeted him with silence. At 33, Jae-won was already a living legend, a Korean tech billionaire who built his empire from a tiny rooftop studio to one of Asia's fastest-growing companies. But behind the polished suits, silent stares, and flawless press interviews, was a man losing more than just time. His doctors had been clear. Stage 4. Terminal. A few months. Maybe. But Jae-won had no interest in dying in a hospital bed surrounded by sterile lights and strangers pretending to care. He refused treatment, refused sympathy. He wasn't afraid of death, he was afraid of dying without ever being truly known. He kept his condition secret. Even his assistant of 10 years didn't know. His team thought he was overworked, burnt out. But the truth was darker, his liver was failing, and his painkillers were the only thing keeping him upright during board meetings. He stopped buying furniture. He stopped attending events. He started writing letters, notes, small pieces of his truth he'd never had the courage to speak. And one letter was never sent. Everything in his world moved efficiently, automated homes, scheduled calls, pre-approved meals. Everything except his heart. That part? It hadn't moved in years. Not since his mother died and his father disowned him for dropping medical school to become a nobody with a laptop. He was cold by design. Silent by choice. Alone by habit. Until, one spring afternoon, in a narrow alley behind a gallery he didn't even mean to visit, a girl crashed into him. Literally. She dropped her bag. Apologized in English. Blushed. And ran off before he could even say. Jae-won blinked, stunned. Then, without knowing why, he followed. Her name was Elena Carter. British-American. A freelance painter who had come to Seoul for just a few weeks, though her visa told a different story. Her laugh was louder than his entire apartment. Her shoes never matched. And she called Korea unapologetically magical, a phrase Jae-won had never heard used for his own city. The second time they met, she was painting a quiet corner of Bukshan Hanok village. Jae-won passed by, recognized her, and paused. She looked up and smiled like they'd known each other for years. "You again," she said, playful. "Stalking me already?" He smiled. Coincidence. But it wasn't. Not really. They began bumping into each other more. Maybe it was fate. Or maybe Jae-won, for once, stopped hiding. He found excuses to visit that gallery, stroll through art districts, and linger at parks where she sketched. Elena was sunshine wrapped in chaos. She had opinions on everything: food, weather, politics, love. "Ever been in love?" she asked once, mid-bite of tteokbokki. Jae-won hesitated. "No time." "Liar," she grinned. "Everyone has time. We just lie about what we're afraid of." He didn't respond. But her words lingered. They were never officially anything. No hand-holding. No romantic declarations. Yet somehow, she made him feel more alive than all his billion-dollar milestones combined. She never Googled him. Never asked what he did. She called him KJ because Kang Jae-won sounds like a K-drama villain. She didn't know that he owned the skyscraper she lived next to. Or that the fancy cafe he always took her to was his. He was just a man to her. And for the first time in his life, that was enough. But the sicker he got, the more he smiled around her, because pretending to live was the only way he could keep her close. Spring gave way to early summer, and their moments grew softer, deeper. Elena never pushed. She didn't ask why Jae-won always wore long sleeves, even in warm weather. She didn't ask about the sudden moments when he'd go quiet, eyes distant like he was trying to freeze time. But she noticed. One rainy evening, they sat beneath a street lamp in Samcheong-dong, sharing convenience store coffee. The air smelled of rain and jasmine, and Jae-won looked unusually tired. "You okay?" she whispered, watching him stare at nothing. "I'm always okay," he said, too quickly. She tilted her head. You know, you don't always have to be. He looked at her like she had just handed him something he didn't know he'd been searching for, permission to be weak. That night, after walking her home, he stood outside her door far longer than he should have. Then he left. He didn't text for days. The truth was catching up to him. His medication was failing. His body was breaking down. He had started writing again, one final letter. One truth he could never say out loud. It was addressed to her. But he didn't know if he'd ever send it. He just wrote, "If you ever find this, know that loving you in silence was the loudest joy of my life." He never signed it. Days turned to weeks. And then, he disappeared. No calls. No visits. Nothing. Elena asked around, but KJ was a ghost. She started painting darker colors. Stopped sketching street corners. Her eyes looked like they missed something unnamed. One day, while visiting the same gallery where they'd first crossed paths, she overheard two businessmen whispering. "Did you hear about Kang Jaewon? The tech mogul? Passed away last night, quietly. Cancer. No public announcement yet." She dropped her coffee. She didn't know why. She didn't know how. But deep in her chest, she knew. She ran. It was raining again the day she received it. A man in a black suit waited outside her building. He handed her an envelope with her name, and nothing else. She opened it. Hands trembling. And read the letter he never sent. "Elena, you gave me something I never thought I'd feel in this life, a second chance at being seen. Not as a billionaire. Not as a story. Just, as a man. I wanted to tell you everything. That I was dying. That I didn't want to go alone. That the way you smiled at me healed years of silence inside me. But I was selfish. I didn't want you to carry the weight of goodbye. I wrote this hoping you'd never have to read it. But if you are, I'm gone. Please don't cry. Or maybe cry just a little, because I liked that you always felt everything so deeply. I love you. And even if I never said it, it was always there. Jaewon." Tears blurred her vision. He had been so close, yet so far. Alive in her memories, dead in the world. But in that moment, he wasn't gone. He was in the way the rain whispered on the glass. In the letter crumpled in her shaking hand. In every unfinished sentence between them. She walked to the rooftop that night, clutching the letter, looking up at Seoul's endless skyline. And whispered, "I would have loved you, even if you had nothing." Some stories don't end with weddings or promises. Some end with a letter. And the echo of a love that bloomed too late, but bloomed nonetheless. Elena framed his letter next to her painting of the street where they met. She started painting again. Not to escape the pain. But to remember it. Because love isn't always about forever. Sometimes it's just about finally being seen, even if only once. Even if only by one person. And if you're reading this? Maybe there's someone you should write to. Before it's too late.